really fly high like a bird up in the sky.
The first 125-mile go featured Buddy Baker on the pole, driving the red Dodge Charger number 71. He had the quickest qualifying time with 185.662 miles per hour. 43, Richard Petty, in another Charger, starts alongside. In the second row, it's 11, Cale Yarborough, in a Junior Johnson-prepared Chevy, next to Ray Elder in the Dodge number 96. In the third row, two more Chevrolets, 12, Bobby Allison, and 28, Gordon Johncock. They're leading the rest of the field down the tri-oval for the green flag. There it is, and the race is on. Cale Yarborough got the jump going into turn one, but Baker passed him as they went into two. Both cars are very evenly matched, and it should be a close battle all the way. Buddy's Dodge is red hot down the chutes, and he seems to stretch the pack, but they close up on him in every turn. Here, Bobby Allison screams his number 12 Monte Carlo into the pits. He told his crew it didn't sound good and that he felt a vibration in the front end. He's been plagued with troubles here at Daytona for the past week. As the leaders start to close up on the slower cars, Johncock passes Petty to take over third, and Cale is working Buddy over on every corner. On the 21st lap, there's a spinner in turn 4. Bob Tolias in number 66 lost it high in the turn, spun around, and ended up in the infield. He's all right. With the first caution flag of the race out, most of the traffic is in the pits. Cale gets out before Baker because Harry Hyde and the crew are fitting Buddy's car with new rubber all the way around to give him a harder compound tire. When Baker comes out on the track, he's in the fourth position. Richard Petty is third, Cale Yarborough second, and Gordy Johncock leads them down for the restart. Into turn one, Cale Yarborough slips his number 11 Chevy underneath Johncock to take over the lead. Petty is third, Baker is on the move. Down the back chute, Johncock stands on the yellow 28 and moves up to challenge Cale through the turn. Yarborough out-punches Gordy down the front chute to maintain the lead. Baker has his Charger wound out and screams past Petty to take the third position. In the second pocket, Baker knifes under Johncock. He's two now, going for Cale and the lead. Here he comes. The red 71 pulls out from behind Yarborough and fires past him right down the main straightaway. Buddy Baker is once again the leader. Down the back chute, onto the high banks, it's Baker with the lead. Yarborough second, Johncock third, and Richard Petty is fourth. Gives Buddy no rest. He's climbing right down his pipes over every foot of the racetrack. Finally, down the long back straight, he moves alongside Baker and entering turn 3 takes the lead away. Has his Chevy about to split at the seams, trying to hold a lead over Baker's Dodge, with Petty closing the gap on both cars. Baker does it again. On the back straightaway, he puts the nose of his Charger in the low groove and blows Cale off to regain his lead. This Chevy Dodge duel is something else. Then Johncock passes Petty to slide into the third spot. Dick Brooks is fifth, Waltrip sixth, and Benny Parsons running seventh. Onto the tri-oval, Baker edges Cale on the inside and is the first car to fly under the white flag. One more lap to go. Baker's Dodge proves to be too much for the Chevy. Cale can stay with him, but there's not enough left to pass Buddy. And the red Charger number 71 streaks under the checkered flag to take the win. Cale Yarborough picked up the second place money. Gordy Johncock finished third, Richard Petty fourth, and Dick Brooks in the fifth spot. The average speed was 173.611 miles per hour, and it lasted 43 minutes, 12 seconds. Cale Yarborough led the race 8 different times, Johncock twice, and Baker 7 times. But Buddy led it for the only lap that really counted, the last one. I think that's why he looks so happy. They may lack the experience and skill of the Grand National drivers, but they make up for it in sheer eagerness and determination. The best-looking equipment and talent ever gathered for a Permitex 300 was here today. 40 cars are lined up, ready to go, before a crowd of over 62,000 race fans. And the bait dangling in front of these drivers is a purse of $44,000. With the signal given, all drivers climb aboard, fire up their cars, and follow the pace car down pit row onto the track. Fastest qualifier, Jackie Rogers, is on the pole in number 98. 55, Tiny Lund is alongside. In the second row, the 00, Sam Ard, and Ottinger driving the deuce. 11, Jack Ingram, and 61, Richie Evans in the third row. Then it's Neil Bonnet, Joe Holly, and number 90, Bill Dennis. As the pack comes down off the fourth turn, they kiss the pace car off, wind them up, and roar down the tri-oval for the green flag. 55, Tiny Lund grabs the lead in turn 1. Number 2, Ottinger second. Sam Ard is third with Bill Dennis in the 4th spot. Tiny Lund leads them onto the tri-oval at the end of the first lap. They're wound up now, and everybody's jockeying for position. The double O car with Sam Ard goes to the high side of Ottinger's number 2, and entering turn 1, Sam takes over the second place spot. Bill Dennis in the Mercury, number 90, is running 4th and moves up on Ottinger, and entering turn 1, passes him to take over 3rd. Now it's Lund, Ard, and Dennis in a tight trio. Down the back chute, Dennis is hot. He passes second place Sammy Ard and moves up on the inside for a door-to-door battle with leader Tiny Lund in the Chevy number 55. Down the front chute, they're still locked up with Sammy hanging in for 3rd. Spinner on the back chute. Bob Jones in the Mercury, number 29, spun all the way down the back chute, taking Buddy Howard with him. The cars end up on the infield grass, and both drivers are out and okay. The caution light is on while they clear the track. Buddy Howard's Mercury is badly damaged and towed behind the wall, while the rest of the field winds up down the front chute for the restart. Bill Dennis is the boy to watch now. He mixes it up with the traffic in every turn. Bill won this race last year, and I'm sure he'd like to go for a rerun. That's called mayhem on the backstretch. Sam Summers got squirrely coming out of 2. Lost it, hit the wall. Then Neil Bonnet, Mac Berrier, and Tom Williams all spun trying to avoid Summers. Henry all over the back 40, the yellow is out, and most of the action is transferred to pit row. This is a slightly shortened version of Neil Bonnet's Dodge Charger after hitting the wall. Bill Dennis leads him down for another green flag, and Sammy Ard in the Double O's Chevy moves into second place. Down the back chute, Sammy challenges on the inside, but Dennis staves him off as they enter the 3rd turn. Richie Evans, driving another Mercury, number 61, limps into the pits. The crew discovers a blown head gasket and push him behind the wall. 55, Tiny Lund has been plagued with problems since the start of the race. On the 45th lap, he brings it in for good and parks it behind the wall. There's another one. That was Duffy in car 79. He lost it coming into turn 2, went low, and suddenly catapulted up and across the track, head-on into the wall, bursting into flames. His car is total. The right front wheel was pushed back to the door. Glenn was conscious, but taken to the hospital for a checkup. This one caused another yellow flag, and pit row went wild. Red Farmer in the Ford 97 has the lead now and brings the pack down for the restart with Jack Ingram in 11 and Sam Ard in the 00 car. Down the back chute, Ingram moves up on the inside and passes Farmer in turn 3 to take the lead. But Bill Dennis is fourth and coming on. Jack Ingram out in front trying to stretch this fearsome foursome of Sammy Ard, Red Farmer, Bill Dennis, and Dennis Giroux in car 50. There he goes. Bill Dennis screams through turn 1, passes Sammy Ard, and moves up on the outside of Jack Ingram. Down the long back chute, Dennis and Ard both fire past Ingram to take over first and second. In a half a lap, Jack Ingram goes from first to third. That spinner in the grass was number 21, Wayne Carton. He lost it coming through turn 2, but horsed it down to the infield and stayed out of trouble. This one brings out another yellow, and all cars head for home. Come down for the restart. Jack Ingram and Bill Dennis are locked up door to door, with Sammy Ard a close third. Coming onto the front straight, Ingram lights the fuse under his Chevy and explodes into the lead. One of the cars dropped oil on the 4th turn, and number 17, Tom Williams, hit the slick, spun around onto the pit entrance. Caution lights are on. Look out, another one. '91, Ray Putnam also loses it in the oil and takes a double hit against the infield guardrail. The sweepers are on the track, and Bill Dennis is the first to pit. Sammy Ard in the 00 right behind him, along with 97, Red Farmer. The action is furious as all crews try to set new servicing records to get those cars out. comes Ray Putnam's shorter Chevy with the rear end pretty well demolished after hitting the wall. He'll take it into the garage. With the green out again, it's Ingram, Dennis, Giroux, and Farmer all heading for turn one in a tight pack. Bill Dennis is hungry and honking as he fires his Mercury into the lead down the back chute. Giroux closes the gap on Dennis down the main straight. This one looks like it'll be a battle right to the wire. Off the high bank second turn, Giroux plants his foot in the carburetor and moves up on the inside of Dennis. Neither driver will give. They're wheel to wheel, rubbing off the numbers. Woo! Giroux got a little squirrely entering the fourth turn and drops behind Bill Dennis. Sammy Yard and Red Farmer are a shadow away in third and fourth spots. Number 11, Jack Ingram, hits with engine trouble, and the crew goes under the hood. Look at this four-pack going for the lead. It's Dennis, Ard, Farmer, and Giroux. They're swapping that lead around like a ping-pong ball. Now it's Sammy Ard with Dennis second. Bill Dennis challenges in turn 3 and takes the lead back. Now Giroux has moved up. Swapping that lead around like a ping-pong ball. Now it's Sammy Yard with Dennis second. Bill Dennis challenges in turn 3 and takes the lead back. Now Giroux has moved up. On the back straight, Bill Dennis tries to stretch his lead, but he can't do it. If there was a tax on determination, these dudes would be broke. With the checkered flag getting close, it's Dennis with the lead, Ard running second, Red Farmer third, and Giroux fourth. Through the pocket, Giroux in number 50 moves up on the inside to fight Sammy Yard for second. There's the white flag. One more lap to go. This is going to be the wild one. Bill Dennis in front. Giroux is second with Ard and Farmer closing up. In turn 3, they look like they're welded together. Giroux low, Dennis high, and breathing right down their pipes, it's the combination of Sammy Yard and Red Farmer. Photo finish cameras are on and ready. Now here they come out of 4 in a drag for the flag. You could cover them with a blanket. It's Bill Dennis by less than a second, winner of the Permatex 300. Hey, look out! These boys don't even stop after the checkered flag is thrown. Number 64, Gary Dupuy, lost it on the backstretch, spun all the way around and into the infield. A very elated Bill Dennis and crew head for victory lane. There can only be one winner, but for a while we thought there'd be 4. We'd like to send our congratulations along to Red Farmer, Denny Giroux, and Sammy Yard, and the rest of the field of drivers who staged one of the most hard-fought and thrilling races we've witnessed in a long time. Bill Dennis just chalked up his second straight Permatex 300. And with the type of competition entered in this race, that's a real achievement. It took him 2 hours, 14 minutes, 16 seconds to do it. For his efforts, Bill received $8,400, the trophy, a kiss from the Queen, the accolades of the crowd, and what's more important, the promise of a very bright future in racing.
Buddy Baker, driving the Dodge number 71, has the pole position. Pete Hamilton in a Plymouth number 9 is alongside. And some big names like Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, Donnie Allison, David Pearson. They're all here, the biggest names in late model stock racing.
A jam-packed, history-making crowd of over 103,000 race fans watched the thrill makers from NASCAR take the parade lap in the 15th annual Daytona 500, the biggest stock car classic in America. Fastest qualifier Buddy Baker is on the pole. Pete Hamilton alongside. That makes it Dodge Plymouth up front. Then it's Cale Yarborough, Gordy Johncock, Herschel McGriff, Richard Petty, and A.J. Foyt. The green flag waves and Buddy Baker in the Dodge number 71 breaks out into the lead. The first 13 laps were under the yellow flag to dry out the track after morning showers. When the green finally fell, Cale Yarborough in the Chevy 11 fired into second place behind Baker like he was shot out of a cannon. Onto the tri-oval, it's Baker, Yarborough, Cuckoo Marlin, and Gordy Johncock fourth. Richard Petty moves up on the inside of Johncock to take over the fourth spot, with Baker and Yarborough running flat out. On the 20th lap, it's Baker, Yarborough, Petty, Johncock, and Foyt. And radar clocks them into the first turn at over 189 miles per hour. The 04 car is the first to pit. Herschel McGriff, the driver. He comes in for 2 right tires, a left rear, fuel, and he's off. Cale Yarborough in the Monte Carlo 11 is pushing Baker every foot of the way. They're setting a tremendous pace and clocking laps at over 188 miles an hour. Pearson, who started in the 20th spot and moving up strong, pulls in for his first pit stop of the day for fuel and tires. On the 34th lap, Pete Hamilton smokes his number 9 Plymouth into the pits with a blown engine. The second fastest qualifier is out of the race. Cale Yarborough screams his number 11 Chevy into the pits, and this is the way we recorded a Junior Johnson 21-second pit stop. Number 28, the Lemon Tree Special, driven by Gordy Johncock, goes behind the wall, out of the race. Richard Petty's crew do a superb job and have that Dodge back on the track in 19 seconds. And on the high banks, Buddy Baker is the boy to catch. He has that number 71 K&K Dodge wound out tight. There they go in turn 4. Car number 42, Marty Robbins, lost it coming onto the tri-oval and slid along the wall for over 1,000 feet. Stayed out of the traffic, and he's okay. After that crash, the Grand Ole Opry star said he was singing 2 octaves higher for 3 days. This one drew a yellow flag, and pit row suddenly became the traffic center of Daytona Beach, Florida. With the cars back on the track, Buddy Baker leads them down for the restart. Cale Yarborough is second, Petty third. Baker's out in front with clear sailing. Meanwhile, Yarborough and Petty have to move up through the traffic. Bobby Allison pits his number 12 Chevy with a broken distributor. His crew put on a new one, and Bobby gets back in the race. Richard has moved right up into Yarborough's trunk now as they both battle it out for second. And with each lap, move a little closer to leader Buddy Baker. Here, Petty drafts on Cale's Chevy all the way down the tri-oval, but Yarborough stretches him a little as they go into turn 1. On this 88th lap, Petty's tires start to chunk, and he's forced to pit. Gives him new right side rubber, a drink of water, an aspirin, clean the windshield, and refuel the car. 24 seconds later, they push him back on the track. On the 130th lap, the leader is still Buddy Baker in the Dodge number 71. Cale Yarborough second in the Chevy 11, with Petty in the Dodge 43 running third. Yarborough tries Baker high and low. His Chevy can run with the Dodge, but he doesn't seem to have the power to pass Buddy. Uh-oh, number 2, Dave Marcus, drops down onto the apron and heads for the garage. His Matador has just blown an engine. Just a few weeks ago, Mark Donahue put that American Motors entry in victory lane at the Riverside 500. But you can't win them all. Cale Yarborough gives Buddy Baker no rest as he chases him into every turn of the racetrack. Petty is third and seems to be pacing himself well. Bobby Isaac is running fourth in a Ford. Look out! Car number 49, driven by John Utzman, blew an engine coming onto the front chute and spun in his own oil. but he held it low, got into the infield, and he's all right. At the same time, going into turn 1, Cale Yarborough blows his engine into Monte Carlo and heads for the garage. With a yellow out, most of the field screams into the pits. The action is wild. Buddy Baker is in first. Number 43, Richard Petty. Along with tires and fuel, Bobby Isaac gets a new windshield. Number 96, Ray Elder, wheels his Dodge in. The Chevrolet number 50 with A.J. Foyt aboard. It all happens in seconds, and suddenly they all roar out. A few of them don't make it back into the race. It's all over for Cale Yarborough and Junior Johnson and the Chevy that ran so strong. But you can bet that these boys have got a big season ahead of them. On the restart, Baker is first. 4 cars back, Petty is second, with Bobby Isaac third. Richard fires past the slower cars, picks up his pace, and begins closing the gap on Buddy Baker. '15, Bobby Isaac holds on to third with Dick Brooks in the Dodge number 6 running a close fourth. With Cale out of the race, Petty takes up the challenge and works Baker over on every inch of the racetrack. But both drivers know they haven't enough fuel to go the distance. Both cars must pit one more time. This is the kind of racing that makes NASCAR number 1. On the 189th lap, 11 more to go, and Richard dives into the pits for fuel only. Maurice and the crew give him just enough to finish. He's out in 9 seconds. Now it's Baker's turn. Fuel only. Harry Hyde and the crew have him rolling in 8 seconds. With both cars refueled, Petty has the lead. 10 laps to go, and Baker has the pistons swapping holes in his Dodge, trying to close the gap on Richard. It's another Daytona duel. Petty with the lead, and Baker is closing on him at the rate of about 1.5 seconds per lap. Can he do it? Suddenly, it happens. Entering turn 3, Buddy Baker just blew the belly out of his Hemi, and the Dodge that led most of the race had the fastest time, and with only 6 laps to go, looked destined for victory lane, now heads for the garage, out of the race. Buddy Baker limps his car into the pits with undoubtedly the heartbreaker of the year. While on the track, Richard Petty whips his number 43 under the white flag with 1 more lap, and it's all his. Down off the high bank, 4th turn, onto the tri-oval, and the Petty Blue flies under the checkered flag, winner of the 15th annual Daytona 500. Bobby Isaac finished second with Dick Brooks third, A.J. Foyt fourth, and Herschel McGriff fifth. Brother Maurice and a jubilant crew pushed Richard's car into victory lane. And there's a couple of questions still unanswered. With 6 laps to go, could Baker have caught him? If so, would he have been able to pass him? We'll never know. But Richard Petty has just won the biggest, richest, and most important stock car race in the world. And he's done it for the 4th time.
The race begins at 12 noon. It's now 11:45, and the 40 fastest cars are lined up in pit row, ready to go for the 8th annual Carolina 500. Fastest qualifier David Pearson in the Mercury, number 21, starts on the pole, with Benny Parsons alongside. Then Richard Petty and Bobby Allison, followed by Buddy Baker, Dave Marcus, Jim Van Diver, Bobby Isaac. In the 5th row, it's Cale Yarborough and Cuckoo Marlin. 28 is Gordy Johncock. Some of the finest drivers in racing are about to climb aboard the fastest stock cars ever assembled on any track in America. While we waited for the race to start, I couldn't help but think that they weren't always this good. Experience is a driver's most important asset, and my mind began to wander back to 1965 and the first race ever held on this track. The cars weren't as fast or as sophisticated. The drivers, well, they had about 8 years less know-how. Richard Petty looks like a teenager. Freddie Lorenzen hadn't found out about long hair, and Junior Johnson had a whole lot less wrinkles back then. Richard Petty and Junior Johnson lead them around for the start, and when they got to the first corner, it looked like everybody forgot to turn left. After they got that one cleaned up, Junior Johnson in number 26 let them down for the restart, and they're off again. Johnson has the lead with Petty and Pearson punching out his taillights. And nowadays, Richard Petty and David Pearson never do anything like this. Look out! They restyled Richard's Plymouth on this one. It's not quite as aerodynamic now. He got out and said, how am I ever going to be a winner if this keeps up? Pearson's crew pried the fender away to give the wheel a little rolling room. Meanwhile, old Junior has the pistons panting in that Ford and grabs the green flag for another restart. Bobby Isaac moves up to battle with Junior Johnson for the lead. Perhaps you've also noticed that the cars didn't handle as well then as they do now. In this one, they kind of used the wall to stay on the track. The cars looked like billiard balls. Uh-oh, there goes another one. Number 42, Jim Pascal pits, jumps out, and Richard Petty climbs aboard to go back on the track. 41, Pops Turner pits for fuel and a drink. The Wood brothers get Marv Paunch in and out in a hurry. With so many cars in the pits, E.J. Trivett felt that he had the track to himself, so he spun it and crashed into the guardrail. Under the yellow flag, Richard Petty in number 42 moves up on the leaders. When the green flag flies again, it's Curtis Turner with the lead, 21 Marv Paunch second, Richard Petty third.
down on the inside of Turner as they pour out of the fourth turn onto the tri-oval. Richard takes the lead. It's another yellow flag, and Petty heads for the pits. He was a little nervous in those days. Then they told him the car popped a valve and he was all done. Back then, he probably wondered how he'd ever become a four-time Grand National champion. On the restart, it's Turner with the lead and Cale Yarborough a close second in the Ford number 27. Proves to be too much for the rest of the field and screams his Ford under the checkered flag winner and official christener of the brand new North Carolina Motor Speedway. That was 8 years ago. Now, here they are, ready for the green flag and the 1973 version of the Carolina 500. In the Mercury number 21 wins the drag into turn one and continues to stretch the lead as all cars pour into the second pocket. Down the back chute, Allison fires past Benny Parsons. At the end of the first lap, it's Pearson, Allison, Parson, and Petty. Has the Mercury wound out and running away from the pack. The Wood brothers have his car set up just right, but Petty and Yarborough are moving up and pacing themselves well. Already Pearson begins to lap the slower cars. If he can keep all the parts glued together, he's on his way to victory lane. The Chevy number 12 is running second and bent on catching Pearson, but he just doesn't seem to have the power. The car-care Chevy driven by Cale Yarborough is the first of the leaders to pit. He gets fuel and rubber and tells Junior Johnson the seat is loose. This could give him some large-size problems. Caution flag of the day is out when Clarence Lovell spins his Chevy in the turn and careens against the inner guardrail. This brings the action to pit row. Petty slides in and they start working on the car before he even stops. The Wood brothers have David out in 20 seconds. Leads all cars down for another green flag, and the restart is officially underway. Big Mercury number 21 is out in front and moving away. Petty is second with Cale Yarborough third. On the 114th lap, Dave Marcus brings the American Motors Matador entry into the pits with engine problems.
This race represents the first time they've run the big 425-inch mill, and Penske felt that they'd have some bugs to iron out. When the crew discovers a blown piston, the car is parked behind the wall. The second caution flag is out when Ray Williams loses his Ford in the second turn and spins it all the way around. When the crew pushes him off the track, they get a little scare as Buck Baker spins his Chevy right behind them. Meanwhile, Richard Petty is the first to take advantage of the yellow and hits his number 43 Dodge. When the green flag falls, the fans are treated to another Pearson-Petty duel. Bobby Allison is running third with Buddy Baker holding down the fourth spot. Allison low, Petty high. They're both running for second with Pearson still showing them the way. That was about as close a near miss as you'll ever see. David Sisko spun his 05 car in the third turn. As he was sliding down the bank, Pearson and Petty roared around him on the high side and just squeaked through. With a yellow out, the pit crews get ready to service their cars. Watch this action. Is still number one. Petty works Pearson over through every turn and still can't get around him. Buddy Baker has moved into third in the K&K Dodge number 71. Another one. Benny Parsons popped a radiator hose and spun in the water he dumped on the track, and once again narrowly avoiding a bad accident. On the restart, Pearson and Petty look like they're glued together. Richard is one lap down and tries every trick in the book to get around David. When they run like that, somebody has to brake. This time, it was Petty. When he pits, Maurice and the crew go under the hood, discover a blown piston, and park the Charger behind the wall. Now, it's all David. Cale Yarborough is second, Baker is third, but they're both one lap down. Pearson's Purolator Mercury sounds stronger on every lap. He owns the raceway with a full lap lead over the second-place Chevy driven by Cale Yarborough. The seat in Cale's car has broken away from the roll bars. He's holding on with one hand and driving with the other. Uh-oh, watch this. Pearson runs over some metal debris lying on the track and flats a tire. This brings another yellow flag out while they clean it up. David screams into the pits. The Wood brothers change the damaged right front tire and throw in a few gallons of fuel. But while he's in, Cale Yarborough flies by to unlap himself. Pearson stops a quick one, but now Yarborough has closed the gap. Pearson still
still holds the front spot on the restart, but now Cale is within striking distance. Buddy Baker in the Dodge 71 is also in the same lap with the leaders. Baker almost lost his numbers on that one. The car in the low groove drifted up and brushed Buddy in the turns, but they're both all right. That broken seat in Cale Yarborough's number 11 Chevy could make the difference. Having to hold on with one hand and drive with the other makes it pretty difficult, especially through the turns. He's still second and trying his best to close on Pearson. With the white flag out, David has one more tour of the oval, and this one is all his. The checkered flag snaps down over the Mercury, number 21, and David Pearson wins the 8th annual Carolina 500. Cale Yarborough finishes second, Buddy Baker third, and Bobby Allison takes the fourth place money. Out of a 492-lap race, David Pearson led 491 of them, and that's a super speedway first in the 25-year history of NASCAR. There's no doubt that the boy from Spartanburg, South Carolina, was in a hurry. Bristol International Speedway, with its wide sweeping high bank turns, is the fastest half mile and one of the most challenging tracks on the NASCAR circuit. This annual Southeastern 500 announces the first big race of the year for Bristol, and the crowds swarm in by the thousands. Pole sitter Cale Yarborough, driving the Junior Johnson prepared Chevrolet number 11, was the fastest qualifier at 107.608 miles per hour. Cecil Gordon started alongside in another Chevy. Buddy Baker and Cuckoo Marlin are in the second row. Richard Petty and Bobby Allison fill out the third row, with Bobby Isaac and Donnie Allison starting right behind in the fourth row. It's a 30-car field that moves around on the parade lap in perfect two-abreast formation. Out of the fourth turn, drivers wind them up. There's the green, and they're off. Gordon are side by side at the start, but Yarborough breaks that duo up when he stands on it coming out of the fourth turn and fires into the lead at the end of the first lap. 14, Cuckoo Marlin is third, 71, Buddy Baker fourth, and Bobby Allison in car 12 is running fifth. Yarborough is running so strong, he's going to pass his own shadow. Junior Johnson has set up winning cars at this track before, but none have looked as good as this Monte Carlo. Baker, Allison, Petty, and Isaac have begun to pick up the pace now in an effort to catch Cale. If they maintain these speeds, there'll be some arm-weary drivers at the end of this race. The 11 Chevy Cale Yarborough is already passing and blowing the doors off the slower cars. He's driving this race like a 10-lap dash. Now the ominous sky that's been threatening all day has just shed a few drops of water. If it keeps up, they'll have to stop. On the 52nd lap, the red flag came out, and the race was officially stopped, and the sky opened up, resulting in a cancellation and postponement of the race for 2 weeks. Sundays later, the cars were back. The drivers returned, and the spectators jammed in again. But the skies didn't look one bit more promising. Nonetheless, it was dry, and that's all they needed. The officials declared that the race would resume from where they left off. on the 52nd lap and with the cars in the same positions as they were in when the red flag was thrown. That puts 11 Yarborough in front, 14 Marlin second, 15 Bobby Isaac third, 71 Baker is fourth, and Petty fifth. Here they are out of the fourth turn, and the 2-week rain-delayed restart is underway. Gale didn't forget how as he bounds out into the early lead once again. Number 44, Eddie Bond, who blew it in the fourth turn and spun right down the main straight in front of the grandstands. Drivers took advantage of the yellow flag for necessary pit stops, were out quickly for the green flag, and the race was underway again. Gale screams his Chevy into the lead once again. Junior Johnson must set this car up with a computer. It's handling perfectly, exactly as it did 2 weeks ago when the race was canceled due to rain. There's no guesswork with these car builders. They're professionals from start to finish. Allison, Isaac, and Petty hold down the second, third, and fourth spots, but Cale seems to be stretching them on every lap. That's Cecil Gordon, one of the front runners, limping down pit row. His crew discover engine troubles and park the car behind the wall out of the race. Meanwhile, Cale Yarborough is about to lap some of the faster cars. In the second turn, he passes Petty. Later, Yarborough punches past Bobby Allison's Coke machine, number 12. This track belongs to Cale, and he takes them high or low. Suddenly, it's a loose wheel right down the main straight, off the right front of Dean Dalton's number 7 Mercury. He dives behind the wall and is okay, but the wheel is still rolling. This brings out another yellow flag. One of the most dangerous things at a racetrack is a loose wheel. A car can strike it and send it flying in any direction. The leaders decide to let the wheel have the track, and they head for pit row. Back on the track, the flagman drops the green, and they're off again. Cale resumes his battle with Bobby Allison, then whips past him as they come down off the high bank second turn. Back chute. Petty quickens the pace and slides around Buddy Baker on the high side. Richard is running third now behind second place contender Bobby Allison. Entering turn 3, the Monte Carlo slides past Bobby Isaac. Now Cale Yarborough has at least one full lap lead over the rest of the field. And if he can keep the rubber band from breaking, he might end this race an hour early. Turn 3, Petty pours it on, pulls up alongside Bobby Allison, and finally passes him to take over the second place spot. Look out!
That was a bad one. Number 71, Buddy Baker's steering went out on him entering turn 3. He'd lost control and hit the wall head on. After careening off the guardrail and with no steering whatsoever, he smashed into Cuckoo Marlin's number 14 Chevrolet. Miraculously, both drivers are all right. The caution light is on and pit row is alive with action. The front end of Buddy's Charger is totaled out, and Harry Hyde and the crew have it towed behind the wall. With the track cleaned up, the cars fly under the green flag, and the 6th restart is off and underway. Cale Yarborough is still doing a sensational job, giving the fans a real demonstration of driving skill. And to aspiring young race car builders, this Chevy is the epitome of performance and handling ability. The Dodge, number 43, driven by Richard Petty, is second, with number 12, Bobby Allison, in the Coke machine, third. Number 54, Lenny Pond, lost it through the turn. Went on a long straightaway spinner, ending up against the inner guardrail. He's all right and drives the car off toward pit row. Meanwhile, Cale Yarborough continues to scream his Chevy toward the checkered flag. With 499 laps under his belt, Cale explodes his Chevy under the white flag. He's led this one from the very start. And I think that even if the engine blew right now, he has enough of a lead to coast home in front of the field. There it is. The checkered flag falls on Cale Yarborough and the Junior Johnson Chevrolet. Second place goes to Richard Petty. Bobby Allison takes home the third place money. A happy Cale Yarborough drives into victory lane. Due to rain, it took him 2 weeks to win the Southeastern 500. And that's nothing compared to the long, dry spell he had racing with USAC. But he's home now. And this race just shows you what red gravy, black-eyed peas, and grits can do for a Southern boy.
The Rebel 500 is a highlight on the Southern racing calendar, and it all happens right here at Darlington International Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. Well, David Pearson is the boy to beat today. He's the fastest qualifier and starts on the pole. But there's a whole red-hot herd of Chargers right behind him. And believe me, they all have great respect for this tricky old granddaddy of the super speedways. Let's get them underway.
This is the one they all want to win. For some reason, a trophy from Darlington is a most highly treasured possession. Not only is it the oldest super speedway, but most drivers consider it to be the toughest, most demanding track on the NASCAR circuit. It's 1.366 miles long. The winner will circle it 367 times and take home the lion's share of a $95,100 purse. With near-perfect weather, a crowd of over 48,000 race fans jammed the stands for this 17th annual running of the Rebel 500. They were attracted by some of the greatest drivers and fastest machinery in stock car racing. The Purolator Mercury, number 21, came up with the quickest qualifying time of 153.463 miles per hour and starts on the pole. Cale Yarborough in the Chevy 11 starts on his side. Bobby Allison and Bobby Isaac are right behind them in the second row. Buddy Baker and Benny Parsons occupy the third row, and then it's Cecil Gordon and Richard Petty. With the pace car off the track, all cars wind up out of the fourth turn, and the moment of truth is here as the green flag snaps down and they're off. David Pearson explodes out of a threesome down the main straight to take the lead as all cars pour into turn 2. Bobby Allison in the Chevy 12 passes Cale Yarborough to take over the second spot. At the end of the first lap, it's Pearson with the lead, Allison a close second, Yarborough running third, and Bobby Isaac in the number 15 Ford holding down on the fourth spot. Allison is right on top of Pearson through every turn as he challenges David for the top spot. At Darlington, the action comes early and in bunches. This one in the second turn involved 5 cars: Arrington, Ponch, Marcus, Pond, and Dalton. Richie Ponch in number 90 will be the first car behind the wall. With the yellow out, the pits and the garage area are loaded with broken machinery. Here, driver Lenny Pond jumps out of the car and does a little body shop work of his own. Dave Marcus's Dodge is towed behind the wall. Suddenly, it's racing time with Pearson and Allison bringing them down for the restart. Turn, Allison drops low, puts a wheel under David, and powers his way through to take the lead. Now, Pearson is 2 with Isaac Green. Bobby's Coke machine is handling very well through the turns, and he seems to be stretching Pearson. Buddy Baker, driving the K&K Dodge 71, makes an unscheduled pit stop. His crew discover a broken control arm and push the car into the garage area to replace it. They can fix it, but it'll cost Buddy several precious laps. Bobby Allison has the nose of his Chevy pointed right toward victory lane. It looks like he's going to run away and hide. That was Cale Yarborough in the car care Chevy. He's had handling problems for the last few laps. Finally, he lost it, hit the wall, and spun all over the third turn. The yellow is out again, and Cale is the first one to flap down pit row. As soon as he comes to a stop, Junior Johnson and the crew swarm all over the car. Pearson pours in. The Wood brothers do their usual spectacular job, and David gets less than a 20-second rest. Bud Moore and the crew give Bobby Isaac's Ford new right side rubber and fuel.
Meanwhile, Cale's car is re-glued. They put on new tires, uncrunched the sheet metal, refueled it, and push him out on the track. All cars are out and ready now as Bobby Allison brings them under the third green flag of the day, and they're off. Pearson is second now with Bobby Isaacs right on top of him and looking for daylight. There's a blow-up on the front chute. Joe Frizon in number 18 blew the Hemi out of his Dodge down the front chute. And at the same time, 89, Johnny Barnes lost it and spun in turn one. With traffic just barely able to get around him, Joe is about the only one that takes to the pits. For him, it'll be a permanent stop. The flagman is getting as much of a workout as the drivers today as he drops another green, and they're off again. This time, David Pearson has the lead with Petty second and Bobby Isaac third. Shoot. Bobby Isaac tries Petty on the high side and passes him. He's two now, going for Pearson and the big one. Oh no, another one. Just blew it down the back chute. Then, as he entered turn 3, lost it and spun in his own oil. They're popping engines today like balloons. Once again, the caution lamp is lit and the race is in the pits. On the 98th lap, Cale Yarborough has the lead and brings all cars down for another restart. David Pearson is second, Allison third. Bobby Allison is hot today on the back chute. He passes Pearson and closes up on Cale. Fourth turn, Bobby unleashes the Chevy on the high side to take the lead away. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that this Alabama hustler came here to race. As hard as Allison tries, he just can't shake David's big Mercury. Both cars hang in the turns well, and they're very evenly matched. On the 170th lap, Paul Tyler in the number 83 Mercury loses it, does a double spinner, stays out of trouble, and drops down onto the apron. He's all right, and the race continues. Pearson gives Allison no rest as he drives him hard and deep into every turn. There's a lot of Chevy fans here today that'd like to see it end just like it is now, with Allison in front. Car 24, Cecil Gordon, drops into the pits, tells his crew the air is showing through on the right side, and they give him fuel and new rubber. Then it's race leader Bobby Allison in. Watch this Junior Johnson crew. Boy, they know their job and do it well. Right behind him, Pearson swings in, and the nation's finest pit crew goes to work. they got a pit row, Pearson wins it. Or maybe we should say the Wood brothers won it. At any rate, David is leading Bobby now. Now the old pro in number 43, Richard Petty, picks up his pace and closes on the leaders. Richard is a very cool driver and doesn't believe in burning his car up during the early stages of a race. Like everybody else, Petty has to head for home, too. This time they give him left side rubber and a full tank. Now Pearson and Allison have moved up on some of the slower cars. The traffic is thick, but these boys cut it like a hot knife through butter. Into the third turn, Bobby's moving up. He cocks the nose of that Chevy to the low side and fires underneath Pearson to take the lead as they dive out of the fourth turn. Allison is pouring it on now. He's actually stretching David in every turn. He's going to run that Chevy right out from under the numbers. It's another blown engine on the front straight and a spin out in the first turn. Then James Hilton crashes into the wall out of the fourth turn and limps down the straightaway. This one draws yellow lights all the way around the racetrack. Hilton finally brings the car to a halt in the first turn. When they check it over, they find the right front spindle broken. His pit crew will have to remove the crunched fender, then replace the spindle and wheel. When they tow Hilton's car away, the wheel drops off, but it knows where it belongs and follows the car toward the garage area. Allison leads them around for the restart. There's the green and they're away. But this time, Petty is second with Pearson third. David is cranking on Richard now, and there he goes. Pearson whips his Mercury past the STP Dodge to take over second. But he's going to have to fly to catch Bobby Allison. Hey, look out! 77, Charlie Roberts blows in the first turn, spins down onto the infield. Then, number 30, Walter Ballard, loses it in the oil slick, spins out right behind it. With the yellow out, we're going to give you a close-up view of the finest pit action in racing. Watch it. Track ready for the restart, Bobby Allison dives back into the pits, complaining of a vibration in the front end. When the crew check it, they find stripped lug nuts on the right front wheel. This necessitates a change of the entire wheel assembly, and it'll cost Bobby one full lap. With Allison one lap down, number 11, Cale Yarborough, in a battered and beat-up Chevrolet, leads the pack down for the restart. Cale has handling, engine, and transmission problems, to mention just a few. Pearson passes him easily on the back chute to regain his lead. Coming up in a blind blur of speed is Bobby Allison. He's one lap down and determined to make it up. He begins the charge on Davy. These are the duels that make Darlington famous. Comes when Cale Yarborough tangles with another car entering turn 3. His sparring partner is G.C. Spencer, driving the Dodge 49. This brings out caution flag number 10. Spencer and Yarborough both dock their cars behind the wall, filled with the souvenirs of Darlington. Pace car and David Pearson lead him around for yet another green flag. Right after the start, there's mayhem in turn 1. A 7-car pileup that rattled the press box turned the first corner into a junkyard. Petty was involved, 72, Penny Parsons, 25, Roy Main, 67, Buddy Arrington. '98, Dick Brooks is helped out of his car and into a waiting ambulance. The garage area is now loaded with wrecked machinery as Darlington claims its usual toll. Bobby Allison, who earlier looked destined for victory lane, is back in the pits. With the hood up, he climbs out, his face clearly reflecting the despair of defeat. 40 cars started this race. 12 now come down for the last green flag of the day. David Pearson is the leader. Benny Parsons, in a badly crippled Chevrolet number 72, vainly tries to hang on to the second place spot. The white flag snaps down on the Purolator Mercury number 21. David Pearson need only circle his oval one more time. Down the long back chute into turn 3. Fourth turn onto the front chute, and there it is, the checkered flag. David Pearson is the winner of the 17th annual Rebel 500. Benny Parsons hung on long enough to finish second. Bobby Allison was declared third place finisher, and Richard Childress took the fourth place money. From the first green flag to the checkered took 4 hours, 5 minutes, 14 seconds. A very cool, calm, but tired David Pearson climbs out of his car, $15,835 richer. To finish Darlington is in itself a triumph. Thus, the winner's trophy becomes a magnificent possession. This track is the adrenaline raiser. 2.66 miles long with 33-degree bank turns, a 6,000-foot back straightaway. The infield alone consumes 315 acres, large enough to hold 31 Super Bowl fields. Undisputedly, the largest and fastest racing and testing facility in the world. Every race here is shrouded in a cocoon of tension and anxiety for the drivers and spectators alike. 60 of the finest late model stock racers in the country pour out of pit row and onto the track for this third annual running of the Winston 500. In these cars are perhaps the coolest, bravest, most professional group of drivers ever to assemble at any speed arena in the nation. Buddy Baker was the fastest qualifier at 193.435 miles per hour and starts on the pole in the Dodge number 71. 21 David Pearson in the Mercury starts alongside. Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough have the second row. Then Bobby Allison, Gordy Johncock, Bobby Isaac, the biggest names in the business, bring them down for the green flag, and suddenly the Alabama air rings with the sound of power. Petty and Baker duel it out through turn 2 with Allison and Yarborough right behind them. Entering turn 3, Pearson slips through on the inside and takes over the lead. Onto the tri-oval, Baker notches down a groove, moves up alongside David as they fly into turn 1. Buddy takes over the number 1 spot. Yarborough and Petty form a tight trio chasing Baker and Pearson. They're flat out now, and we're just clocked into the first turn at 196 miles per hour. Two cars head for the pits early for a change in rubber compound. Meanwhile, Pearson slacks off the pace, and Cale and Bobby Allison move up to work on Baker. Buddy Baker and Cale Yarborough, like they're glued together. It looks like a rerun of the Daytona 500. Allison back in the third spot looking for a hole. Look out, on the backstretch. This looks like a battle. A whole pack of cars went into that cloud of dust, and no one is coming out into the third turn. When the dust and smoke cleared, this was the first clean shot our cameraman could get. The backstretch looks like a junkyard. It all started when Ramo Stott blew an engine coming into turn 2. Wendell Scott spun out behind him, and both cars screamed onto the infield dirt. Suddenly, there was a solid blanket of smoke and dust. Like our backstretch camera, the drivers could see nothing. They spun in the oil slick, crashed into the wall, and hurtled into each other. At 195 miles per hour, and with no visibility whatsoever, it was a nightmare, and the worst accident in NASCAR history. Richard Petty's crew discover a damaged crankcase and push the Dodge into the garage. Here's a look at some of the other machinery, completely totaled out. 85 is Ronnie Daniels' Chevy. 48 is the Mercury driven by James Hilton. Bill Ward's Chevy, number 82. 88 is Ron Keselowski. The damage is unbelievable, like Bobby Mossgrover's Ford, number 53. The front end of Bobby Allison's Monte Carlo disintegrated. Buddy Baker's Dodge dragged behind the wall. And here's Cale Yarborough's Chevy 11. Front end, gone. Car after car is towed behind the wall with an average cost of $20,000 per racer. This accident is not only the worst, but perhaps the most expensive in the history of NASCAR. Several drivers received lacerations. Earl Brooks had a fractured hand. Joe Frazan suffered shoulder injuries. Slick Gardner, a knee injury. However, due to the rigid NASCAR safety regulations, particularly those concerning roll cages, every driver got out and walked away under his own power. And this in itself is some kind of miracle. With Petty's car repaired, he goes back on the track. But Cale Yarborough and several other drivers will be spectators for the rest of this one. That mayhem on the back chute claimed 17 cars and put the caution flag out for 1 hour, 5 minutes. 37 laps were run under the yellow. All wrecked cars behind the wall. Number 61, Clarence Lovell, and 14, Cuckoo Marlin, lead the remainder of the field down for the restart. There's the green, and they're underway once again. Into the first turn, Clarence Lovell comes up with the lead. Cecil Gordon has the second spot. Now Cecil Gordon slips past Lovell to take the lead. Bobby Isaac is back in the fourth spot and starting to move. Here comes Isaac in the number 15 Ford on the outside of Lovell and going for the big one. Through the deuce turn, Bobby Isaac does it the hard way on the outside. He now owns the lead. Gordon second, Lovell third. Now Petty pulls in with oil pressure sagging. When the crew check it, they find a broken pump and park it behind the wall. Bobby's lead is short-lived. His car begins smoking, and Darrell Waltrip in the Mercury, number 95, has taken over the lead. He's a hard charger and considered to be one of the most promising rookies on the NASCAR scene. Again, Talladega takes its toll with another blown engine, this time on car number 40, a Ford driven by Ulrich. With oil on the track, the yellow flag waves, and pit row looks like the place to go. Waltrip and Pearson are first in, but Darrell's crew is no match for the incomparable Wood brothers, and David streaks out first. Watch the rest of this action. Crew discover a blown piston, and Darrell puts the Mercury behind the wall. With the oil cleaned off the track and all cars serviced, the remainder of this 60-car field comes down for the green flag at another restart. Into the first turn, David Pearson edges out the competition to grab the lead, with Donnie Allison trying to close on him. David and the Big Mercury begin to stretch the pack now. With so many of the top cars involved in that first accident, Pearson's competition is definitely limited. There goes another one. With 3 laps to go, Vic Parsons, driving the Mercury, number 45, blew the engine, entering turn 1, spun in the oil, lost it, went high to the wall, and back down onto the infield grass. The caution flag is out, and it looks like it'll last for the duration. Pearson heads under the white and yellow with 1 more lap, and he owns another big one. David is second only to the pace car as he follows it down the tri-oval and under the checkered flag. Even though the race finished under the yellow, Pearson had little or no competition, having a full lap lead over second-place contender Donnie Allison. Third went to number 72, Benny Parsons. Clarence Lovell took fourth, and Cecil Gordon fifth. The race lasted 3 hours, 47 minutes. There were only 4 caution flags, but they consumed a total of 54 laps. The purse was over $159,000. David's share was $25,845. Tomorrow, many car owners will start to rebuild from scratch. Mr. Cool, he'll go fishing. Crowd of over 90,000 race fans jammed the stands to witness the 14th running of perhaps the most grueling competitive auto race in the country, the World 600. The cars are the fastest late model stocks in the business. The drivers are some of the bravest, most skillful speed merchants in the history of motorsports. And the track? Well, this 1.5-mile Charlotte Motor Speedway, with its wide, sweeping 26-degree high bank turns, is one of the most demanding on the NASCAR circuit. And that, my friend, is what it's all about. A few of the reasons why this race is the highlight of our Memorial Day weekend. With the signal given to crank 'em up, the pace car leads the 40-car field down pit row and onto the track. Hometown driver Buddy Baker earned the pole position with the fastest qualifying time of 158.051 miles per hour in the Dodge Charger number 71. Alongside from Spartanburg, South Carolina, in the Purolator Mercury number 21, it's David Pearson. Starting in the 3rd position in car 43, the driver who just this afternoon was notified of his appointment to Racing's Hall of Fame in Indianapolis, Indiana, Richard Petty. Starting next to Richard in the 4th position from Timmonsville, South Carolina, in the Car Care Chevy 11, Cale Yarborough. These are the drivers that lead this sensational starting field down out of the 4th turn, and suddenly the sound of power rips the air as all cars explode under the green flag. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the 14th annual World 600 is underway. Baker takes advantage of that pole spot and fires into the lead. Petty is second, Cale Yarborough third. At the end of the first lap, Baker leads them onto the tri-oval, and they're wound up now. Petty is right on his back with Cale moving up. Turn 1, Yarborough drops underneath Richard, kicks the Chevy hard to take over second place, and closes on Buddy Baker. Some of the experts thought they paced themselves slower during the early part of the race, but no way. Cale Yarborough wants that lead, and he's working Baker over down every foot of the track. Petty is a very close third. David Pearson fourth in the Mercury, with number 28, Charlie Glotzbach, running fifth. On lap 4, coming into the 3rd turn, Yarborough waves bye-bye, Buddy, as he passes on the high side to take the lead. But this is a tight pack, and the lead changes often. Watch him. Now Petty slides around Baker to take the 2nd spot. In a half a lap, Buddy goes from 1st to 3rd. Whoops! Pearson decides to run with the leaders, and he too passes Baker. Down the long back chute, they really wind him up. Here comes Richard. He fires past Cale, and the Petty Blue is number 1. Now Now watch this Pearson-Yarborough battle for second. These are the duels that keep the people on their feet. After about 2 laps of swapping paint, Cale Yarborough ends the battle by taking over second. David is third, Buddy Baker fourth. Petty's Charger looks stronger now than when he won Daytona earlier this year. The Hemi is stretching the pack down the chute, and the car is working very well through the turns. Cale Yarborough likes it up front, and down the back chute he roars past Richard to regain his lead. The speed at the end of 10 laps is 155.619 miles per hour. The fans down south believe it's lead changing that makes racing, and so does Richard Petty as he passes Yarborough in turn 1. Richard has all the parts working now, and Cale can't stick with him down the chutes. David Pearson is pacing his Mercury well back in the 3rd spot. Buddy Baker running a very cool 4th. On the back chute, look out. That was Peter Gregg in the Dodge number 6 who lost it out of the 2nd turn, spun all the way down the backstretch until he slammed into the concrete retaining wall. The car came to a halt in the middle of the track, and with absolutely flawless reflexes, every car got around him safely. The yellow was lit on the 37th lap, and most of the field headed in for servicing. Here's your chance to watch the finest pit crews in racing. Serviced and back on the track, the Dodge number 6 is towed into the garage. Peter Gregg is all right. He's a strong driver on the sports car circuit. This was his first short ride in a late model style. 90 is the leader and brings the field down out of the 4th turn onto the front chute for the green flag and the first restart of the day. Petty is second and closing the gap on Brooks. Down the backstretch, Brooks Ford is no match for the Petty Dodge, and Richard screams past him as they enter turn 3. The Randleman Rocket is first again. NASCAR's winningest driver, number 43, Richard Petty, as he stretches the pack through turn 3. But Mr. Cool, David Pearson, in the Mercury, number 21, has moved into second. Pit stop, Richard told his crew that the Charger was handling and running perfectly. They've been having some trouble in the Petty stable for the past few weeks, but it looks like they have it ironed out now because he's leaving them. On the 70th lap, number 14, Cuckoo Marlin, comes smoking into the pits and right on into the garage with a blown engine. That move decreases the track traffic by 1. Meanwhile, Buddy Baker has passed Pearson to capture the second place spot. He won this race last year, and there's nothing old Buddy would like more than a repeat. As the rubber wears and the gas tanks become thirsty, pit crewmen ready themselves for the onslaught. Enough praise cannot be given these men, for it's here, in the pits, that races are won or lost. And so that you might better appreciate their accomplishments, we filmed this sequence in slow motion. On the 160th lap, and by virtue of some spectacular pit work, Buddy Baker has regained the lead in the K&K Dodge 71. Richard Petty is second, David Pearson third, but starting to pick up his pace. Petty's crew ready a blackboard sign, showing him the top 4 cars. However, this could change any moment because David Pearson is on the move. There he goes. Davy Pearson slams his foot into the carburetor and unleashes that big Mercury down the back chute to pass Petty as they enter turn 3. Now it's Baker, Pearson, Petty, and Yarborough, or Dodge, Mercury, Dodge, and Chevy. That's the leader, Buddy Baker, who just lost it and spun hard going into the 4th turn. Right about now, he probably feels that the ball game is all over. But the yellow flag is out, and Buddy screams into the pits. Harry Hyde and the crew swarm all over the car. Baker slashed a right side tire. The blowout caused him to take the spinner. On the restart, it's Pearson with the lead, Baker second, Petty third. But as they round out of the 4th turn, the whole pack is moving up. When they see the flag, they're going to flat get on with it. Here they come, and watch Petty on the high side. That Dodge looks like it was shot out of a cannon. On the way out of turn 1, Richard Petty is once again the leader of the World 600. Into the 3rd pocket, Buddy Baker drops into the low groove, whips past Pearson, and takes over 2nd. Buddy must be thinking that new tires do make a difference. The fourth caution light of the day flashes on the 258th lap when number 45, Vic Parsons, loses his Ford in the fourth turn and crashed hard into the infield retaining wall. Vic was stunned, but all right. He was taken to the hospital for a checkup and released shortly thereafter. Not so with the car. It was totaled out. Now showers began to fall, and the red flag came out to stop the cars. It only lasted for a short time, and Buddy Baker didn't mind. He wanted to get out and stretch for a while anyway. 38 minutes after the first drop fell, the showers ended. Tarps were removed, engines fired up, and the cars took about 3 laps to dry up the track. Now, Petty leads all cars out of the fourth turn for the green flag. The rest period is over, and the race is on. Baker is second, Pearson third, and Cale Yarborough fourth. There goes another engine, this time out of the Dodge number 25, driven by Roy Main. Uh-oh, watch this. With Baker pressing hard, Petty went high through the fourth turn, too high, and put the right side of the car into the guardrail. This could cause some handling problems. There goes another one. That was Larry Smith in the Carling's Black Label Mercury. He lost it in the turn, spun, slams the outer wall twice, then limps down onto the infield grass. With the yellow on all the way around, cleanup crews head onto the track, and drivers dive for the pits. Richard Petty is in first. Maurice and the boys go to work on the battered right side. His Mercury in with ruffled tail feathers. Petty's crew worked feverishly to pry the sheet metal away from the wheel. However, not quick enough. On the track, the pace car leads the field around for another restart. That's the green, and they're flying again. Number 31, Jim Vandiver, and 11, Cale Yarborough, lead them through turn 2. But 71 and 21, Baker and Pearson are exploding their way through the traffic. Watch these boys move. Meanwhile, Petty is still in the pits. His love affair with the wall caused some suspension problems. Now Baker is 1, Pearson is 2. We've seen duels by the dozen today, but these boys are hot. Let's watch them. The 6th yellow flag of the day flies when a piece of debris is spotted on the backstretch. That yellow brings the Baker-Pearson battle into the pits. Both cars need rubber and fuel to go the distance, and this is their chance. Sensational. In 13.2 seconds, they changed left side rubber, gassed the Mercury, give David a drink, and push him out. It took Harry Hyde and the crew longer, but they put new rubber on all 4 wheels. David Pearson brings him down for the restart, but that whole pack is trying to climb right into his trunk. '71, Buddy Baker is second, but he's caught up back in the pack, and Pearson is running wild. Through turn 2, Pearson still holds the lead, but Baker and Yarborough are closing on him every lap. As they fire onto the back chute, Baker has caught Pearson. Now, can Buddy do it? Down the double dogleg front stretch, they're door-to-door and scraping the numbers. As they scream into turn 1, Buddy Baker comes out with the lead. Four-tire swap on Baker's last pit stop may be the story of the race. The Wood brothers gave David left side rubber only, thinking the car would handle better that way. But Pearson can't seem to pass him. Cale Yarborough in the Chevy 11 is running third, 1 lap down. In the Ford number 15, Bobby Isaac has moved into fourth, and he started the race in the 15th position. Richard Petty is back on the track and running, but way down. He was in the pits for almost 28 laps while they adjusted the suspension, and he's still handling poorly. There's the white flag. One more lap, and Buddy Baker will take home his second consecutive World 600 trophy. Out of turn 2, and that Hemi is still wound up and pulling away from the pack. Onto the front chute. After 400 laps, Buddy Baker slides his Dodge Charger under the checkered flag, winner of the world's longest stock car race. David Pearson goes home with the second place money, Cale Yarborough third, Bobby Isaac fourth, Benny Parsons finishes fifth. Buddy wheels the big red 71 into victory lane after 4 hours, 26 minutes, and 53 seconds. 24 lead changes had the crowd on their feet most of the afternoon. There were 6 caution flags, one of which came out when Baker blew his tire and spun in the 4th turn. At that moment, he had little hope of ending up here amidst the roses and throngs of cheering people. Buddy was completely exhausted, but very happy. You see, back-to-back wins at the World 600 do that to a guy.
More than 70,000 come to Darlington every year to share the electric excitement of the Southern 500. For the track at Darlington is more than slick asphalt and wicked turns. This is a track with history, and the men who come to drive have that history burned into their own memories. For 24 years, they've written a proud record book. Major League stock car racing began on this track, and the men remember. Take Bobby Allison. He'll never forget that 2 years ago, he trailed Richard Petty for miles, then blasted his way into the lead. Petty had more than 100 victories in stock car racing. Allison was a struggling driver just beginning to make a name for himself. When Allison beat Richard Petty and won the Southern 500, the racing world took notice. It was a turning point in Allison's career. He had his pick of cars to drive, and more than that, When he beat the track at Darlington, he knew how good he really was. A year after that victory, Allison was running second to David Pearson, another tough, shrewd driver with more than 50 victories behind him. Allison and Pearson locked horns in one of the most amazing battles in stock car history. Finally, Allison took the lead, and 100 miles later, the victory. A year ago, Allison became the third man in history to win 2 Southern 500s back-to-back. Now, can he do what's never been done? Win 3 in a row? This is Richard Petty. He's raced for 15 years, but Darlington's been tough on him. Richard has more than 152 victories in his career, but only once has he been able to win the Southern 500. 6 years ago, Richard climbed atop his car in Victory Lane. It was also a victory for Richard's father, Lee Petty, a retired race driver who had won everything except the Southern 5. Richard's wife, Linda, joined the celebration. She'd shared the thrills and the heartaches of 70,000 racing miles. Irrepressible Richard Petty is ready for another go at Darlington. Buddy Baker started racing here 11 years ago. Darlington's a narrow track, and when there's trouble ahead, there's nowhere to go. In 1969, Buddy learned that sometimes you pay for somebody else's mistakes. 4 years later, Buddy faced the same problem in the same place with the same results. Somebody in front of him made a mistake, and Buddy lost the race. When victory finally came to Buddy Baker, it was long overdue. Buddy's father, Buck, had won 3 Southern 500s in his brilliant career. Buddy's victory at Darlington marked the first time a father and son had won the same race on the same track. Buddy's run a lot of miles since this picture was taken in 1962. But the lure of victory at the Southern 500 keeps bringing him back. Born 11 miles from this track, peeked under the fence when he was a boy, not knowing that one day he would take a ride that would never be forgotten. In 1965, Cale was running in number 27, challenging Sam McCragg for the lead when suddenly Cale Yarborough was outside the racetrack. He said later, "I looked down and saw grass, and I knew I was in trouble then, because no grass grows on the Darlington Raceway." Well, he walked away from that one and came back 5 years later to take another ride, almost as wild. He walked away from that one, too. Ironman Cale Yarborough has made a boyhood dream come true. Once, in all the years, he won the Southern 500. It makes up for a lot. Cale hasn't won a 500-mile race in 3 years. He wants this one. David Pearson's won 9 super speedway races so far this season, but he's never won the Southern 500. 6 years ago, Pearson, number 17, challenged Cale Yarborough for the lead. There's just enough room for 2 cars in the first turn, if you're careful. Pearson wasn't careful enough. He finished second then, and was second last year to Bobby Allison. This year, Dave Pearson's having his best season ever, and he's tired of being the bridesmaid. Today, Pearson's driving the fastest qualifier. It's time to go racing. 44 engines thunder to life. Leading the field from the inside of the first row, David Pearson, who qualified at more than 150 miles an hour. Next to him, Bobby Allison. winner of the last two Southern 500s. Inside the second row, Richard Petty in number 43. On the outside, a rookie, Darrell Waltrip. In row 3, Buddy Baker, number 71, and Charlie Glotzback, a hard-running veteran. Behind Glotzback is Cale Yarborough, number 11, and Benny Parsons in number 72. Stock car racing began here in the South, but now is a national sport. The infield and both grandstands are packed with fans from all the lower 48. Many of them have come every year since racing started in 1950. The fastest starting field ever seen at the Darlington Raceway is running for $138,000 in prize money and a place in the record book. They'll run 500 miles in less than 4 hours. On the front stretch, the caution flag keeps them down to 100 miles an hour. The green flag flies, and they're racing. Bobby Allison's engine bogs down, and David Pearson takes the lead, with Petty and Glotzback right behind him. Allison holds on to fourth spot as they accelerate through the first and second turns. Cale Yarborough is in fifth position. The backstretch, and they're really moving. Pearson leads Richard Petty into the third turn. Petty slides and corrects. At 140 miles an hour, the track is slick as ice. Darrell Waltrip finds out the hard way. He slides into the wall on the fourth turn and heads right for the pits. Charlie Glotzback beats Richard Petty into the first turn and sets his sights on Dave Pearson. Glotzback follows a simple race plan. Drive it as hard as you can, as long as it'll run. If it breaks, build it better next time. As long as there's a car under him, Charlie will be tough. But Glotzback's not the only charger. There's a tough one right behind him. Here's Cale Yarborough making his move on Charlie Glotzback. Cale in number 11 grabs second place. Bobby Allison is fourth. There are 3 Chevys chasing David Pearson's Mercury as the leaders overtake slower cars, putting them a lap down. Cale tries to lead. Can't do it. Bobby Allison thinks fast as Charlie Glotzback lifts his foot for an instant. Allison's got third spot as the slower cars move out of the high, fast groove, giving the leaders racing room. That's what makes Darlington so tough. There's only one really fast way around the track. Richard Petty's dropped back to 5th place. Petty's smart enough to pace himself until the last 100 miles. Then, look out. David Pearson's still the leader, but Cale Yarborough is running him down. Then, takes the lead. Bobby Allison follows right behind him, putting his number 12 into second position. In the wink of an eye, David Pearson drops from first to third. Yarborough leads, Allison second, then Pearson and Glotzback. The front runners are traveling 148 miles an hour, a new track record. Lenny Pond is in the pits, blindfolded. He suddenly found himself on instruments when the hood latches gave way. Yarborough leads, and Bud Moore's in trouble. Pearson, Glotzback, and Petty squeak by as Moore keeps it down out of the fast groove. There's no yellow flag. The race goes on. Pearson in number 21 and Glotzback in number 28 are dueling for third spot, but Cale Yarborough and Allison have pulled away in their own private battle for the lead. Average speed for the first 20 laps is 145 on a track originally designed for 75. Higher speeds require better communication. Many crews now use radio to keep their drivers informed. Junior Johnson's linked up with Cale Yarborough. A spin in turn 3. It's Tom Gale. There's another car out of control. Johnny Barnes in number 89. Someone broke an engine and spilled oil on the track. Jim Van Diver gets through the turn backwards as quick reflexes save some other drivers. David Sisko is another spin victim. Nobody hurt. The safety car moves out to slow the field and get in position in front of the leader. The race cars may close up, but cannot pass one another according to the rules of NASCAR, the association controlling this race. There's a fire in the pits on the backstretch. Gasoline splashed out of the refueling tank and ignited. A crewman's shoe is burning. Those red cans carry 11 gallons of gasoline. The fire is under control before anything is lost, except a pair of shoes. The safety car pulls off the track as the field lines up for the restart. In the outside lane is Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker, and Cale Yarborough running 1, 2, 3 as the green flag restarts the race. Buddy Baker, driving Dodge number 71, is challenging for the lead. Baker, winner here in 1970, has moved up among the leaders after a fast pit stop. Baker takes the lead, and in the same moment, Charlie Glotzback takes third away from Cale Yarborough. It's almost as important for some drivers to lead the race as to win it. Allison, Petty, and Pearson only care about leading the last lap. But Glotzback and Baker want to run in front. On the backstretch, Baker moves low on the track as his speed suddenly drops. Glotzback runs for daylight. Charlie Glotzback takes the lead, but there goes Bobby Allison snatching it away. Only Allison Chevy can pass slow on the track in the fourth turn, but Glotzback's been showing a little more power on the straightaway. Glotzback blasts into the lead again. This is tremendous racing. Allison in number 12 settles for second place and waits for another chance. He passed Glotzback once and has the confidence that comes with winning. In a long race, there are times to challenge and times to follow the flow of traffic, waiting, watching, learning. On the front stretch, Allison tests Glotzback, but Charlie keeps it right on the edge, giving away nothing. Three fast Chevys are flying down the backstretch. Cale Yarborough in third spot, looking for his chance to run in front. Into the third turn where Allison can really run. And there he goes, dropping down and taking the lead. Allison is the only driver who knows that short way around this track. Allison keeps that engine wound tight and holds the lead down the front stretch. Yarborough is looking at Glotzback's bumper and at Allison out in front of the pack. Taking one thing at a time, Cale in number 11 sets his sight on Glotzback. At the end of the backstretch, Cale gets him. Now only Allison stands between Yarborough and first place. There's a spin in turn 4. It's Richie Pants coming off the guardrail into the wall, then down across the track in the face of heavy traffic. Pants is only 18 years old, but right now he must feel a lot older. He's safe, but that was a close one. Again, the caution car goes onto the track to slow traffic so the surface can be cleaned and inspected. Richard Petty's making an unscheduled pit stop after running some ragged laps. A top driver like Petty can run one lap after another with less than 1/10 of a second difference between them. When the stopwatches show an uneven pattern, the driver may be tiring. Petty's crew has a relief driver standing by in the pits. Richard, stock car racing's most successful driver, with more victories than the next two men combined, is giving up the car. South Carolina has been baking in a week-long heat wave that sent temperatures into the high 90s. The temperature of the track surface is more than 140 degrees. There's a three-car accident on the fourth turn. Ray Williams, J.D. McDuffie, and Henley Gray mangle each other's sheet metal, but don't do serious damage to man or machine. That's Henley Gray's car with fender at half-mast. The yellow flag slows the traffic while a wrecker goes out to bring Gray's car back to the pits. Cale Yarborough's Chevy is in the pits, needing fuel and tires. Right behind him is Dave Pearson's Mercury. The first car back on the track will have an edge when the green flag waves. It's a race of pit crews as 5 men service each car, changing 2 tires and pouring in 20 gallons of gas. In 16 seconds, Cale's rolling again, and Pearson's right behind him. The pits at a NASCAR race are the fastest service stations in the world. At the end of pit road, they're held until the traffic breaks. Then, in the same order, they rejoin the pack. Hale will be in front of Pearson when the green flag waves. Charlie Glotzback drives behind the pit wall and out of the race. The rear end is threatening to lock up, and Charlie would rather park it than crash it. They're ready for a restart. The green flag will come out in one more lap. But Cale Yarborough gives up first place and heads back to the pits. Yarborough's crew saw Dave Pearson's mechanic signal for a pit stop. Pearson realized the green was about to fly and ignored his pit signal. But Yarborough's crew has radioed to their driver, who has obeyed. Now, Cale has 4 new tires, but a lot of lost ground to make up. He'll be in back of the field when they restart the race. The other cars are half a lap ahead, traveling 90 miles an hour behind the safety car, as Yarborough roars out of the pits, running hard to close up with Pearson and Allison, who are both ahead of him. Glotzback is out. Baker has spent too much time in the pits. Petty's car is not as fast without Richard at the wheel. It's down to a 3-way battle now. Less than 100 miles in which to catch Pearson. Yarborough has closed in on Bobby Allison and goes by him to take second place. Allison has slowed down. He may be having trouble with his car. Buddy Baker's car handles better on fresh tires, and he goes by Pearson to unlap himself. This should put some heart in Yarborough. If Baker can pass Pearson, then perhaps Yarborough can catch him too. Jim Van Diver parks his car in the third turn. He hasn't been running right since an earlier crash. There's no yellow flag. The race goes on, full speed ahead. Yarborough has hauled up on Dave Pearson, who has never won the Southern 500, although he won the Rebel race run here in the spring on 3 occasions. The Southern 500 has jinxed him, although he finished second to Bobby Allison a year ago and to Cale Yarborough in 1968. Any finish better than 4th today will put Pearson over the $1 million mark in total purses won. There are 15 laps to go in the race, and Pearson knows that Yarborough is going to be knocking on the door any second. This is what stock car racing is all about. The final showdown after more than 400 miles of blazing competition. Cale Yarborough's going to try for the lead. Yarborough taps Pearson's fender, and Pearson's out of control. Yarborough takes the lead. Here's the way it looked from a close-up camera. Because they're running on the edge of control, the slightest contact can cause a spin if it happens at the wrong place on the track. All drivers know this and try to keep some daylight between the fenders. Pearson still wants to win. He's right on Cale Yarborough's rear deck. If he were any closer, he'd be in Yarborough's back seat. There's no contact. This game is too serious, too fast, and too dangerous for fender banging. Yarborough's Chevy has the lead, with Pearson's Mercury close as a coat of paint and 6 laps still to race. First place is worth $20,000. Second is worth only half of that. But they're running for more than money. Both of these men have worked and suffered on this track. Both have seen victory and defeat. And both will tell you when you've won at Darlington, you've done it all. Again, Pearson tries for the lead. And again, Yarborough holds him off. As a boy, Yarborough peeked through these fences. As an underage youth, he lied his way into the starting field. Now, he's got a chance for his second victory at this track that lies only 11 miles from his hometown. Pearson's running hard as ever in second place, but Cale Yarborough has found extra horsepower and is running away with first place. Yarborough has put a lot of daylight between himself and Pearson's second place car. His Chevy is running fine, and Cale doesn't want to spoil things by changing his pace. 3 laps to go. 2-car spin coming out of turn 2. It's Henry Gray involved in his second accident of the day. And James Hilton goes with him this time. Hilton will try to keep it running, but for Henry Gray, limping around to the pits, this was not his best day. There are 2 laps to go. Pearson has closed in on Yarborough. The caution signal slows all cars. Will the green flag again signal for high speed? There's the white flag on the front stretch, and the pace car is on the track, leading Cale Yarborough on the last lap. They'll finish the race under yellow. Cale has his hand raised in a victory salute. He's done all the high-speed running for the day. There's nothing left to prove. Cale Yarborough is the fastest who ran longest at Darlington this afternoon. Cale Yarborough cruises into sight of the checkered flag, running no more than 90 miles an hour. It's hard to believe the first race run in 1950 was won at an average speed of 76 miles an hour. Yarborough's winning speed, 134 miles an hour, a new record. His crew runs to meet him at Victory Lane after flashing the traditional sign that means, "Come in. We'll help you spend part of the first place money." Yarborough's victory was a popular one. His fans in South Carolina are many and loud. Cale Yarborough wheels to Victory Lane to meet his crew. As Junior Johnson put it, some of the crew got ill when the car was wrecked so often, but there's no better medicine than to win a big race. There's a hug for Herb Nabb, the crew chief, while Junior Johnson waits nearby. If that pit stop had gone wrong, if Cale hadn't been able to catch Pearson in the final laps, well, riots have started for less in this part of the country. Yarborough is joined in victory circle by his wife Betty Jo and their daughter Julianne. Cale Yarborough, who went over the wall 8 years ago, has won his second Southern 500. For Cale, for the fans who stretch for a glimpse of the winner, and for those who now must pack up and look for a way out of the infield,